Bé, bona tarda.
Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to everyone. This afternoon we'll be talking about the shared agenda for the economic transformation of the Lleida, Pyrenees, and Aran Valley region. As we heard before, this touches on depopulation and the lack of generational handover in key sectors. And our Smart Specialisation strategy is based inter alia on the bioeconomy. Lleida is one of the 4 administrative sub-regions of Catalonia. In the European nomenclature, it would be a NUTS 3 sub-region. The surface area is some 12,000 square kilometers, representing 32% of the total surface area of Catalonia, but only 6% of the Catalan population, some 447,000 inhabitants, live here. 31% of the residents live in the capital, Lleida. The remainder live in some 230 municipalities, 94% of which have fewer than 5,000 residents. Hence, the territory is very rural. 60% of the surface area is forests in the north, and 40% is used for agricultural purposes and farming, mostly in the south. This is the largest farming region in Catalonia. In total, Lleida produces more than 50% of agricultural production and livestock in Catalonia. Lleida indeed produces 70% of cereal and fodder, 80% of sweet fruit, 45% of olive trees. And as for livestock, 53% of the head of cattle and 60% of heads of pork, pigs, are produced here in Lleida. Now, this afternoon we'll hear from some of the key stakeholders from the shared agenda. We'll hear about its beginning and current affairs, and we'll hear about job opportunities from these shared agendas and some of the key outcomes from the work we have done together, concretely in the Biohub CAT initiative. To kick things off, it's my pleasure to give the floor to the president of the Lleida Provincial Council, Joan Talarn. Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you to the Government of Catalonia's Department of Economy. It's a pleasure to tell you about our projects and what we're doing in our region. And thank you to everyone who's decided to join us here in this room to hear about what we're doing in our shared agendas in the Lleida region. Now, predominantly rural regions represent 45% of the EU's surface area. But in terms of data from 2021, just 21% of the European population actually lives in these regions. Often, people flee these areas due to a lack of opportunities, a lack of livelihoods. These regions have great natural capital, and therefore they're key for achieving the aims of the European Green Deal. Becoming the first climate-neutral continent while decreasing our reliance on resources from third parties from other countries, which is essential, calls for clean energy, sustainable, safe production of food, promoting decarbonization of our industries, sustainable mobility, and preserving and restoring our ecosystems and biodiversity. And of course, this calls for underscoring our natural resources sustainably. If we want to truly see a just transformation, we need to generate prosperity and well-being in these rural areas. These areas that manage most of our natural resources. In other words, the type of economic transformation we'd like to see needs to be socially desirable, environmentally possible, and economically feasible. This transformation must tackle our depopulation and talent flight and ensure that our infrastructure is truly respected, that we build infrastructure in these regions, because for decades we've seen a lack of investment in rural areas who are seeing fewer opportunities than urban areas. Our shared agenda is based on this perspective, and it's a real pleasure to share with you our initiative, which is based on this transformative innovation agenda. Without this type of innovation in the S3 strategy, it would be impossible to truly see a green transition which is just ensures territorial rebalancing. So we're convinced that our new S3 strategy in Catalonia and these shared agendas will allow us to promote research and innovation and ensure we can tackle the challenges of this transformation.
Gràcies, president. Iniciarem...
Thank you very much, President. And now we'll take a look at our shared agenda, starting at the outset by telling you about the pilot project that gave rise to the agenda. Our shared agenda is based on the Biohub Punen pilot project. 8 municipalities from the Lleida region, headed up by Alcarràs, came together. In 2018, we saw that the bioeconomy was an opportunity to tackle local and sectoral challenges. This pilot project was seen as a European-level case study. Indeed, the European Regional Development Network saw that this was a great project due to its ability to pool our efforts and promote innovation in bioeconomy in rural areas. So first we'll hear from Miquel Serra, the former mayor of Alcarràs from 2011 to 2019, who's also a farmer and a rancher.
Bona tarda, Miquel.
A very good afternoon to you, Miquel. I'm sure many of the people in this room will have heard of Alcarràs, thanks to a film which won the Golden Bear for Best Picture at the 2022 Berlinale. And if you saw the film, well, you won't see all that many overlaps with what the end of the movie says. Miquel, could you tell us a little bit about the situation in the municipality when you, as mayor, decided to launch this Punen Biolab? Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here and to tell you about this because it's been a long process. Working with my colleagues from the City Council. Now, Alcarràs is quite unique. It's the most dense municipality in Europe in terms of the number of farms. That means we have 195,000 pigs and 34,000 cattle. In other words, we're one of the most important drivers of livestock and farming in the region. And we have a real problem with ensuring that we have enough new talent coming in, young talent. And every administration needs to really redouble its efforts and lay out every possible path forward to find options. We know that when we're talking about alternatives, well, sometimes these aren't mid-term solutions, they're long-term solutions. But with this aim in mind, with an aim of giving opportunities to young people from our municipality, talented people, ensuring they have highly qualified jobs, well, that gave rise to this project. People who are aware of the situation in Europe, like Teresa Botargas, of course, who is our moderator today. Thank you very much to you, Teresa. And of course, as we said earlier to Tatiana, both of you helped us with our work at the City Council level when this was brand new. Thank you for helping us to bring together these other 8 municipalities, 8 total municipalities in the Biolab Punen, which allowed us to really lay out possibilities for our entrepreneurs, business people, our ranchers, bringing together knowledge, business people, people from civil society and other associations, and the administration sitting down at the same table to work together. And of course, the administration is essential. We need politicians. They lay out the regulations, and then it falls to make sure we actually implement them. It seems easy, but actually getting 8 municipalities with different political views in mind to all come together is a challenge. Now, why did you focus on the bioeconomy? The driver of the Alcarràs economy is the bioeconomy, and we have many people who are highly qualified experts in this field. If we wanted to boost our production, our manufacturing, we needed to ensure that it was more fair and more sustainable for our territory and for society. And of course, that starts with the bioeconomy. Products that don't harm the environment. We don't want our water to be polluted, and obviously the people who are most concerned about this, well, that's farmers. The media can claim that people living in a region are those that are giving rise to pollution for our water. What that actually, well, our aim is to ensure that we have the highest quality, most sustainable environments possible, and that is where the bioeconomy comes into play, with the universities, research centers, roundtables, administrations, businesses. Well, business people shared their concerns, academia shared potential solutions, the administration laid out possible governance-based solutions, and we saw that we could forge synergies amongst ourselves to work in a more sustainable way with higher yield. To put it clearly, we laid out this pilot project, this industrial estate that would become a benchmark. We had a composting plant where we manage our manure. So you can buy this green treated manure and use it in your homes for plants. And now we have biofuel, biogas projects. We're trying to extract gas from manure. This will be bottled. And this can be used to generate high quality food. So these great fertilizers are clean, they're healthy, and we can use them to make high quality products. And that's the heart of the bioeconomy. Reusing everything from our environments. That's the most logical approach, and that's actually what we've been doing for decades. So at the end of the day, what you managed to do was bring together various city councils. As you said, this wasn't very easy, and you had an administrative agreement, and in short, well, on the screen, we can see that this was a long process. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did with the Biolab? What are the main activities or outcomes? Well, let me share a few very positive outcomes. One thing that really surprised us all was that we were able to take stock of the various resources in our territory. Lleida, Catalonia. Well, we don't have diamonds. We don't have gas, fuel, but we were surprised by how much organic material we could use to produce energy. Now, I'm speaking off the top of my head, but I think it was some 900 million tons of products that we could reuse. This is the work of our farmers, our ranchers, and we were able to, as I said before, build synergies so that we could create such green fuels. And Teresa, you might recall, we've discussed this before. One real surprise was that we studied, this was the University of Lleida, which studied the amount of fiber in pork slurry, and well, you can use this to actually create cell phone screens and many, many other types of products. Graphite, for example. So the opportunities are limitless. Obviously, it won't be easy, but as I said before, we can actually try to create opportunities to tackle depopulation, to create high-quality jobs. We cannot let leave these people behind. That's our obligation as politicians, and I'd like to thank those who helped to put together our administrative structures to make sure that we could really support these projects. And I'm working with I was talking about this with the president, Joan Talarn. Well, this bio-industrial estate is moving forward. People in the Alcarràs region, well, we're very stubborn and we keep pushing forward to make sure we achieve these aims. So basically, you took a problem and you came together to turn it into an opportunity, one you can seize. Yes. Obviously, as ranchers, we saw that there was a major problem, that excrementa wasn't being well managed. There was a lot of red tape. We were doing our best, but it just wasn't enough. So we wanted to make sure that our companies in the agriculture and livestock sector would be more sustainable. Some investors who take a look at this don't really understand it. Now we've got these composting and biofuel projects, and we have to bear in mind that even if the yield is limited, it does have a trickle-down effect for our farms. We're more sustainable. So we saw a problem and we moved forward. We realized that it wasn't just about finding a solution. It was creating opportunities for our children, for the youth, for the new generations. Early on, we heard that manure, slurry, that was waste, and we don't think that's the case. We think these are resources. Let me just point out how important that is. We need to change the way we're talking about this so the general public understands that we can create high-quality food building on what we have. Now, Miguel, perhaps you didn't realize that when you were putting together this project, you were creating a shared agenda. And indeed, the Government of Catalonia built on this. It was at the same time. It was in 2020 where the first S3 M&E document came out, and it highlighted the Biolab Ponent as an example. Well, yes, I don't think we'd be here today if not for these shared agendas. It's not a single-pronged approach. You really have to bring together as many stakeholders as possible so that you can actually roll these projects out. The administration, research, business, and research is really important. We need to work together to figure out which technology would be most appropriate to design it and really to boost yield. So there are a lot of different strands that need to come together here. Thank you very, very much, Miquel, for explaining where the Lleida Shared Agenda came from. Thank you.
Doncs bé, els
Lessons learned from the Ponent Biolab, and this framework led to a major step forward in 2019, the shared agenda for the Lleida, Pyrenees, and Aran Valley region. It's now my pleasure to invite up to the top table some of the key stakeholders from the Shared Agenda Strategic Committee, which is known as the G10. So, Joan Talarn, President of the Provincial Council of Lleida, Jaume Salto, President of the Chamber of Commerce of Lleida, Montse Rouet, Vice Chancellor of Students and Employment of the University of Lleida, Montse Brages, Government Delegate in the Terres de Lleida, and Josep Maria Cardenas, President of COEL, Jesus Torrelles, President of PIMEC Lleida, Cristina Rodriguez, General Secretary of the CCOO Trade Union in Lleida, and Ramon Moreno, Secretary of Social Policy and Employment in the UGT Trade Union, the Terres de Lleida branch. Thank you very much.
Falta una cadira, carai. El G10 és gran. Sí. Podeu? Sí. Cabeu? No puc moure el faristol. Benvinguts i benvingudes. La metodologia de les agendes...
Welcome. This shared agenda methodology establishes 3 steps to set out a shared agenda. Every case is different, and implementing these 3 steps may be different in every case. But in the case of Lleida, it has to do with the work carried out from 2019 to the present time. So we'll begin with the first step. The goal is to prepare with the different stakeholders the necessary foundation to set out a shared agenda, which entails first to identify the challenge of that region, to identify the key stakeholders that are committed to changing things and to create the first promoting or leading group, then to develop a shared vision of the future, to co-identify priority areas and opportunities, and that must be, a priority in order to move forward towards this vision of the future, and last but not least, to define a first model of governance and support tools. Now, Mr. Chairman, how do we go about this first step? Once again, I would like to greet everyone in the room. Well, we decided to start because in 2019, as you rightly said, we had a new government in place, the provincial government in Lleida, and we had an issue, a territorial problem, which was quite significant. There was a risk of depopulation in the Lleida, Pyrenees, and Aran Valley counties, mostly in mountainous areas in which there's been quite an aged population. And obviously, our goal here was to, for families, for people to have their own life projects in order to stay where they are. And obviously, in order to achieve that, there were some administrative changes which we could be pivotal in order to provide the necessary, supply the necessary services to have 21st century and 21st century infrastructure, such as the road structure, technology, but also the ability to set up a business in their own towns or the possibility to work there. But for that to be a reality, I have to say that in the past, we had experienced the crisis in 2008, a loss of human capital. The agricultural yield didn't have quite a high added value. It was seen as a problem. Given that we are active in agriculture, we don't have opportunities. So what did we do at the time? Well, there were several solutions that were not very successful. They were not efficient enough. Many studies were being developed, focusing on the origin, the root cause of the depopulation, the aging of the population, the lack of services. We knew that, but we had to take a step forward and to find those solutions. Then, in terms of European funds, we had funds for repopulation. They were being used sparsely. Every town or municipality would implement them their own way. Sometimes some of those investments did not serve the general purpose of repopulating those areas. And finally, the primary sector was seen as a problem rather than as an opportunity. So our thought was we have to change the way we work, and we have to do this convinced about the need to do this, not only from a regional or provincial level of government, but bringing together all the different stakeholders in the region. They're the ones who can help us move forward. We have our own limitations as administrations, but if we want to create jobs and business opportunities, we cannot do this alone. That's when we first met with the different stakeholders, the chambers of commerce, first with universities, because it was extremely important for this project to be a reality, to have the right research. We had to be told how to go about it because we didn't know enough, which is why the universities were involved. I mean, we couldn't have tackled this differently. We were in communication with the Catalan government. They are the ones holding this responsibility over the whole of Catalonia. That was the initial step. But we also thought it was important to bring on board the business representatives as well as trade unionists, and that's how we set up this G10 group. Our goal was to change this economic model into a new model in which the primary sector is seen as an opportunity, because that's our asset. That's what we do best in our region. You have seen this with our figures. We produce more than half the agricultural and cattle raising production or yield, which is what we did. We made the most of our own skills, but we had to do that bearing in mind the current times, the need for sustainability, meeting SDGs, and all European agreements such as the European Green Deal. We said, okay, let's go for it together, and that was our great opportunity. And this has been the pull factor for the whole project, using our resources, moving towards a green, circular, and obviously, as it couldn't be otherwise, highly digitized economy. The experience of Alcarràs, as we just heard, was key. We were in contact with several people, Teresa as well. The whole provincial government joined our efforts. I'm extremely grateful to her team. We took a look at the Alcarràs experience, and based on that, we set up the Technical Office for Transformation. So on top of the G10, which is a key council, it was also necessary to have technical experts. We were politicians at the end of the day. We needed a structure, which is why we set up this Transformation Office. And we used European funds wisely. We decided to apply an orderly structure and to knowing what our goals are and how we could best utilize that money. But this obviously was only possible as long as we agreed, as long as we had everyone on board, employees, workers, business associations, trade unionists, and that's why we have this shared agenda. Without it, we would all have worked on our own in silos. So that's the key, to have a vision, to spot an opportunity, and to work on it together. Thank you. Well, between 2019 and 2020, despite the pandemic, some of the goals were met. So we're going to ask the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce in Lleida, who's a member of this first advocacy group, this G6, how they tackled another goal of this shared agenda. So, Mr. Salto, why is it so important, as the chairman was saying, why is it important to have this shared view of the future, and how did you achieve that in Lleida? Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, picking up on what the chairman of the provincial government said, we have the technical G10 as well, which is quite a powerful group. All administrations have contributed our own experts. And that's how we set up this office at the provincial government. Now, on to your question, Teresa. Bolstering this technological innovation requires knowing how you want your territory to be after this transformation, to have this vision of the future, and to provide a shared narrative by all stakeholders, and to promote acceptance and responsibility regarding the activities that are fostered by this agenda. Our goal is to standardize our expectations and to align our efforts, and to make an efficient use of the existing public funding tools. Without that future vision, often these tools become a means to an end. And we see how things overlap or how projects do not have concrete impact in a region, which shouldn't be the case. We need to have an ambitious, inspiring vision, but at the same time, it must be based on reality. It needs to bear into account the real trends and particularities of our region, which is why in Lleida, the Pyrenees, and the Aran Valley, we are aware of both our strengths and weaknesses, and that's how we started to design our vision for the future, maximizing our strengths, minimizing our weaknesses based on the economic paradigm that was being put forward globally. And the result of this collective effort, which took place in 2020 in the midst of a global pandemic, was an agreed upon view of this future vision, and that would allow our region to attach value on collaborative efforts, our strategic geolocation, our resources, our capabilities, and endogenous potential, but to do so in very fair, smart terms with a competitive model and with a green, circular, and highly digitized model. This economic model should allow us to boost strategic economic sectors and to help create new emerging sectors and new business models. Now, for this to be a reality, companies need to work in the most advantageous framework with the right infrastructures and services. Their activities need to contribute to creating the levels of prosperity and welfare that are needed to attract both a new population and talent. Obviously, we need to correct any shortcoming, but we need to actively contribute to the fulfillment of SDGs and to the digital transformation that is being fostered all across Europe. The G6 members published this vision for the future in the first months of 2021 in order to render this agreement more visible and to get more people on board. For the Lleida agenda, this future vision is like a guiding star that shows us the way. It never expires. It's a tool for navigation. And we know that this transformation will be a long journey ahead, but that's why we believe that these consensus-based solutions are key. We shouldn't depend on electoral cycles. We need to work over the long term, and we at the Chambers of Commerce believe that is the way forward. And it's important to divulge this information, which is why I'm here. You should know that Lleida is quite active and a lot of things are going on in our region. So this vision for the future offers us a desired state, a scenario of in the long run, which means changes in the current system, how knowledge and technology is produced, our policies, regulations, investments, infrastructures, the values of our society, but also the markets that establish the preferences of our consumers. So moving forward along this way means restructuring our agenda work at a more operational stage by identifying priorities that allow us to boost specific actions that help us move closer to the processes at stake. We're going to ask the Vice President of the University of Lleida, who was a member of that initial advocacy group, to tell us how this action was implemented. Why is it important, Ms. Sandroy, to identify priorities, and how did you tackle this from the University of Lleida? Good afternoon. Thank you, Teresa. It is a pleasure to be surrounded by you. The president of the university was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today. So the words that I'm going to utter will be shared by us both. I'll read. I don't want to miss anything I wanted to express. And I have to say that people have mentioned universities and the significance of research and development and innovation. So I'm very grateful about that. But before I move on to the priorities, I'd like to say that at our university, we know that any strategy for the future is based on the right training. And the University of Lleida is highly committed, highly engaged to offer quality education to our youth. So we're talking about long life learning. we not only want to offer the right training to move forward in terms of technology, but as it has been said earlier, to also increase our values and our social commitment, which is what society is asking from us. Now, we need to foster knowledge, but having this cutting-edge research is not enough. You need to transfer it, you need to implement the results of such research, and this can only be done by working together with society at large, and remembering that we do this in order to fulfill our societal needs, and in order to get to the final goal, you need to work on the strategy, which is what we're doing at the Lleida Shared Agenda. Now, onto the priorities. I was listening to Elisabetta or to Fernando Merida earlier, and I thought about that adage of think globally and act locally. How do we define our strategies? Well, we need to know, our knowledge, our strengths and weaknesses. The mayor of Alcarràs explained this very clearly. They had a problem or several problems, but they need to find a way to solve them and to use everything around them to keep the youth in our region and to have to increase our social cohesion. So first, you take stock of your situation. You ponder where technology is leading you, what people are talking about. For instance, last summer there was a congress at the European Parliament called Beyond Growth, and Miquel mentioned this earlier. We're not here only looking for a business, we're looking for solutions and how there must be a return on this investment for our fellow citizens without losing sight of these goals. So looking at the moon and not the finger that's pointing to it. Now in 2021, as said earlier, a couple of years ago, we already identified 7 priorities, ranging from bioeconomy, from an agricultural, silvestry, fishery point of view, green energy, sustainable tourism, and needless to say, we cannot forget about the climate emergency. So climate resilience in terms of infrastructure and ecosystems. Now, in order to find solutions to these priorities, a list of milestones have been identified. I'm not going to repeat what the mayor of Alcarràs already said. I think that it's very clear how they're working on this priority of bioeconomy. These milestones have their own task forces behind them. These groups are showing us the way. They're helping us to clear all of these hurdles and to turn them into opportunities. There are people working at those task forces from the very beginning, members of the initial advocacy group, and other people have joined these efforts in time, people who had the right knowledge or clout to make this a reality. And this is what we call a governance model. It's a key element for the governance model of these agendas. And in order to finish, just like you have underlined the importance of knowledge in universities, universities believe that working together in a collaboration is key. We are convinced that a research and innovation system created by the Academy on R&D centers, technological centers, but also with companies, social agents, associations is the key to find an answer to this big problem. So big solutions, always based on collaborating. And this is what is going to transform us into a knowledge-based region. Thank you. Ms. Roe once again mentioned this idea of governance model. Governance model and transition towards sustainability is a challenge in itself, given that it requires to align interventions from the administration, which are top-down, with activities from innovating associations from civil society that are bottom-up. Therefore, it requires new ways to collaborate, as it has been mentioned, between the government, academia, companies, and civil society that are more participatory, dynamic, and open, fostering experimentation and flexibility. Ms. Montse Vergés, delegate of the Catalan government in Lleida, in the Lleida province. How is this transferred to the governance model in Lleida? Good afternoon. Thank you. Well, the common denominator, which has been pointed out by the Secretary and Tatiana and pretty much everyone who has already spoken, is that, well, it's a different way to work. And as the chairman of the provincial government has said, we were lucky enough to have the case of Alcarràs as a basis, and it helped us align our efforts. Now, in order to summarize this, I mean, they have already said it, but there are two levels. We have the institutional level. We started off as a G6, and now we have the G10. That's the term we use, but it's the strategic committee of the shared agenda. That's where we have the institutions that have established, that have set out these goals with a list of milestones. That's a roadmap for us, the navigation tools, as Tatiana said, and then we have a technical working group in which every institution appoints the right people depending on the milestone that they're working on. This technical working group is trying to find the resources, goes to talk to businesses, opens up this perspective and collaborates with different sectors. In order to make this a reality, we set up this technical transformation office, which is in between the institutional G10 and the technical G10, and it acts as a bridge between these two prongs of the same system, trying to find the right resources, European funds, other experiences, looking for specific businesses in order to carry out that transformation, etc. Well, this might sound difficult, but we have very important results by now, and you'll have a chance to discover them. And picking up on what the minister said, this transformation, with its 7 priorities, it has 2 cross-cutting priorities. It has to be a fair and smart transformation. Otherwise, we cannot call it a transformation. And obviously, for it to be just, it means we must fight inequalities. Let me just give you an example of a project that's based on that idea of a shared agenda from a gender perspective. Obviously, there's also an economic transformation component, but this project was spearheaded by the Catalan government delegation. It was for women who had these transforming capabilities in the rural world, that were leaders in the rural areas. So I invite you all to visit our websites and to read about all the work we've done. And I would like to thank people at the Catalan government, such as Clara Porta from Acció, Jaume Sió from the Department of Climate Change, Tatiana. There's this whole group of technical experts, and without them, this wouldn't have been possible. Thank you. Okay, so we've taken a look at the different steps for implementing the agenda, and we're going to take a look at the methodology as set out by the Catalan government. But this methodology is obviously a general guideline that needs to be adjusted to everyone's needs. The results up to now are 47 activities that have been co-designed and co-implemented, that have mobilized a bit over 17 million euros, thanks to fostering synergies between European funds and programs. Because, as we have said, one of the main characteristics of this agenda is that it bolsters teamwork based on a common view for the future and the priorities that have been identified. So, from this perspective, European funds and programs are a mere tool, as Mr. Saldo said, not an end in itself. Now, we have the Biohub CAT leading experience. We'll speak about it in our last panel. However, we would like to say that the Lleida agenda became an innovative instrument in order to tackle the complexity of a social and economic transformation, which is why we wanted to ask the social and economic agents from the G10 how or whether they believe that the agenda can help help them tackle this problem in a more effective manner. So, as an economic agent, what is your perception about the work fostered by the agenda? Good afternoon, and before I answer your question, I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity I've been granted to participate in this conference, in this wonderful setting, the Llotja de Mar, a building that dates back to the 18th century, neo-Gothic, neoclassical building. I'm sure that those who first built it never thought that a few centuries down the line we would be speaking about bioeconomy, sustainability, and all of these notions that we now bandy about. Now, onto your question. In our organization, COIL, we are concerned because we want to meet the needs of all of our companies as part of this transformation process. I believe it's become a buzzword. We speak about transformation, digitization, bioeconomy, sustainability, applied technology, sustainable growth, innovation. It's a common topic for conversation. It's become part of our vocabulary as part of this shared consciousness. But obviously, there's a long way ahead of us. We still need to improve. Needless to say, our goal as business associations is to help our companies along in anything they need. But we also need to help them towards a higher degree of sustainability and to transform towards more sustainable production and consumption models with these green, circular, and digital economy models. And it has implications in both traditional sectors and emerging markets. I'm convinced about this. I believe that the most traditional sectors will have to survive, but it will depend on their ability to adjust towards this more sustainable economy. So this is a goal for us, and we'll do our best. However, I would like to point out that many of the companies that are members of our association are already, as part of this journey, trying to transition to move towards a new model. They're making quite an effort to implement sustainable transformation strategies. We conduct surveys among our members, and whenever we ask about this, more than 75% of respondents of these companies show a willingness to maintain or increase investment in this bioeconomy culture or sustainability culture. So it's quite a percentage. There's still a remaining 25% on which we need to work as associations and economic agents to help them understand that that's the only possibility for the future. So that's an important goal for us. That said, the shared agenda is an opportunity. And I'd like to thank the chairman of the provincial government, the Chamber of Commerce, and the delegation of the Catalan government, because they gave us an opportunity to join this G6, which now has grown towards being a G10. Without social agents, we believe that that initial G6 was not representative enough of our economy and the social role of businesses. So it was very important for both trade unions and business associations to be part of that G6 groups. So it's an opportunity. And if you allow me to say so, this has been mentioned by the secretary at the beginning. that one of the problems that companies face, and probably the biggest challenge, it's indeed very troublesome for us, is to identify, to attract, and to retain talent in order to ensure that as a company we can continue to be active. We don't have enough people out there. It's a problem. We cannot meet our needs whenever people ask for our products or services. We lack the necessary skilled workers, and the problem of generational handover, the need for new generations, because sometimes the parents think over giving the business to their children, and many of them think it twice because they don't want to be business people. It's no longer something easy, and that needs to be understood. So we as business people have a social and economic responsibility to pass on the baton, to implement the right policies, which in turn will create social policies. And if we don't succeed, we're going to have a problem. So the shared agenda is letting us tackle this to reinforce our amenities and also to provide new funds in these high-demand sectors, especially in emerging sectors such as that of renewable sources of energy, which is extremely important, and it needs skilled workers and people with new training backgrounds. In terms of education, mostly there's a priority that has been identified, which is waste management and not attaching value to our resources. We need to identify all of these new jobs and to work together with the educational authorities, universities, business associations to provide information, to act as a team and to help shape these new jobs for the future. There's a great uncertainty. We don't know what we're going to be doing in 3 years, let's say. Well, some of us do know because we're, getting older, but the younger generation will have to give us a solution to those challenges. I think it's a shared commitment. I think it's good for us to be part of the team, as the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce said, to work with the technical group, which is the one that really, works from the grassroots on those projects. We are just the public face, and we at COIL with the T10, we will do our utmost because it's very important to work on these new ideas and new projects. Thank you.
Gràcies. Senyor Jesús Torrelles.
Jesus Torrelles, president of PMEC Lleida, also representing employers. What's your point of view? Well, a very good afternoon to you all. From the PMEC perspective and from the territorial perspective, we saw that the best way to help businesses was to work together. Working together will help us to get further, faster. So a study was put together and we came to the conclusion that we needed to work in this direction to promote the bioeconomy. And the way to do that is through investment in infrastructure, communication, industrial estates. And that's what we all came together to call for. Of course, we can't lose sight of energy. Producing energy at the decentralized level and distributing it is something we need to work on. And indeed, all of us have come together to push forward this aim. We think the shared agenda has been a success. By working together, we think we'll get further. And that's our point of view. Thank you very much.
Li preguntarem ara a la senyora Cristina Rodríguez.
Ms. Cristina Rodriguez from the Comisiones Obreras trade union, the Lleida region. Now, as a social actor, what's your point of view? A very good afternoon to you all. I too would like to seize the opportunity we have today to underscore what we've been doing in Lleida, the Pyrenees, and the Aran Valley. We have various institutions, universities, administration, social agents, economic agents from our region, and we've really achieved something huge, putting together a shared agenda. I was going to say it wasn't all that easy, but we did achieve it, and I think we're actually an example for other regions. The fact that we're sitting here together is something we need to highlight. Jointly, we participate in all sorts of consensus building social dialogue efforts actively. One is the PNI, the National Industry Pact. Often in social dialogue at the territorial level, well, it's top down. The Catalan government or state level instructions aren't in line with the needs and possibilities in our region. So the shared agenda has allowed us to make things easier for them. By achieving consensus, we highlight what our region needs. We establish our priorities jointly and push for them. Just a few days ago in the G10 technical working group, those are the people from various institutions and bodies that come together on a technical level to lay the groundwork for our progress. Well, they highlighted the work of social actors in the PNI, the National Industry Pact, focusing on businesses, work, and especially humans, a human-centered approach, front and center in the PNI. And these general top-down strategies, well, we want to ensure that we have a green, digitalized, fair transformation that ensures territorial balance and ensures that we are a real pioneer in the primary sector and the bioeconomy, which is what we're specializing in. So we're very pleased to be here today together explaining what we've done. And indeed, it's a lot easier to do this together. By coming together, our voice is much stronger. Thank you. Well, this is a really important reflection, top-down versus bottom-up. Ramon Moreno, Secretary of Social Policy and Employment of the Terres de Lleida UGT Trade Union. Can you tell us your point of view? Well, good afternoon. First of all, apologies for our Secretary General who's not here. I'm part of the technical team that was working day in and day out on this. And I'd like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to join you here to speak on behalf of the UGT, the leading trade union in the Lleida, Pyrenees, Aran Valley region. Now, as we heard, economic actors play a key role in laying out public actions, but we can't lose sight of the truth on the ground. Often, efficiency, effectiveness, implementation of these actions is not in line with what we'd hope for. It doesn't live up to what our territory needs. Indeed, administrations put forward plans and programs that seem to be acting in silos, and often there's a lack of coordination, a lack of synergies between different policies. In our view, we need to recognize the role of socioeconomic actors. We're key actors in defining and implementing these policies. And industrial policy, jobs, inclusion, social cohesion, innovation, well, all of these policies are initiatives that promote our territory. From our point of view, the UGT point of view, we need to strengthen the shared agenda on the territorial level. This agenda needs to push socioeconomic transformation. It needs to be concrete and focus on our region, and this needs to, of course, be in line with regional and European policies. Our aim is for policy to not become a silo. Rather, it needs to help to actually roll out a roadmap that we jointly have put together at the territorial level. Now, in this vein, we need to promote coordination, consistency between different programs, ensuring that there is convergence towards a shared aim defined at the grassroots level. This will ensure that our work is more effective and more efficient, and will also maximize the positive outcomes for our community. In short, our end goal is promoting our territory, creating a circular, green, digitalized economy, one which contributes to achieving sustainable development goals. So, creating an enabling environment for prosperity, for welfare, attracting talent, and actively contributing to the digital and environmental green transition. So in conclusion, on behalf of the UGT, I'd like to invite everyone to reflect on how important it is to work together. Working together, we can build a robust framework that allows us to roll out the necessary policies to promote socioeconomic development in Catalonia, and more concretely in Lleida, the Pyrenees, and the Aran Valley region. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies a tots.
Thank you very much to the G10. It's a real pleasure to see you all up here. We're seeing this consensus in the flesh. And now I'd like to invite you to step off the stage, and we'll continue with our session. In the meantime, we've got a video for you.
Moltes gràcies.
Thank you all very much.
Que necessita, un punt de trobada entre entitats i persones, un entorn únic ideat per intercanviar i fer créixer idees, on poder investigar, pensar, descobrir i produir noves realitats. El futur requereix noves formes de produir i consumir, abandonar els recursos fòssils i potenciar els recursos renovables i els processos circulars, assegurar el proveïment d'aliments i d'energia sostenible, preservar la biodiversitat i ser eficients en l'ús dels recursos. Avui ja és demà, Lleida al servei del futur. Per aquest motiu, la Diputació de Lleida, al costat de les principals institucions i organitzacions del territori, impulsa l'agenda compartida per la transformació econòmica de les Terres de Lleida, Pirineu i Aran. Una aliança institucional entre administracions, acadèmia, teixit econòmic i social, anomenat com el G10, que fa efectiva una acció conjunta perquè Lleida sigui el motor d'aquesta transformació global del model econòmic i un referent a nivell europeu. Una transformació global de l'economia que ens permeti competir amb la resta de territoris europeus i ens posicioni. Com ho fem? En base a una visió de futur compartida que ha permès identificar oportunitats com la bioeconomia forestal i agropecuària, les cadenes de valor agroalimentàries, l'energia sostenible, la digitalització, el turisme intel·ligent i sostenible o la resiliència climàtica. Unes oportunitats que s'han de fer efectives per assolir un model competitiu i sostenible d'economia verda, circular i altament digitalitzada, que reforci sectors estratègics i afavoreixi l'aparició de sectors emergents i nous models de negoci. La unió institucional que ha fet possible la construcció d'aquesta visió de futur és la que ha permès desenvolupar iniciatives transformadores en clau de territori i de país, com la posada en marxa del Biohub CAT, la finestreta única a Catalunya per al desenvolupament de la bioeconomia, i del CIDAF, el Centre de Suport a la Digitalització del Sector Agroalimentari i Forestal de Catalunya. A través del Biohub CAT s'impulsen accions estratègiques com el desenvolupament del primer polígon bioindustrial del sud d'Europa, el Biohub Industrial Park, com a referent d'entorns industrials ubicats prop de les primeres matèries que necessiten les bioindústries. També amb la posada en marxa del Biohub Tech, per donar resposta a la necessitat de les empreses de disposar d'entorns on puguin experimentar a escala molt propera al mercat abans de prendre la decisió de tirar endavant nous models de negoci o noves línies de producció. Tot amb l'objectiu d'afavorir el desenvolupament d'un model industrial verd d'alt valor afegit i intensiu en coneixement i tecnologia i compatible amb la producció primària. Així, Lleida acollirà una instal·lació d'accés obert per a l'escalat preindustrial de processos d'extracció, producció i transformació de proteïnes alternatives, com a primera fase d'aquest conjunt d'instal·lacions que han de permetre a les empreses reduir els riscos tecnològics i no tecnològics associats al desenvolupament de noves cadenes de valor. Nous serveis, nous equipaments que permetran posar en valor de forma compartida i sobre la base de sòlides xarxes de col·laboració la geolocalització estratègica, els recursos, les capacitats i les potencialitats de Lleida com a territori clau en la transformació verda i digital. Una transformació que ha de ser justa, generadora de valor compartit, capaç de generar els nivells de benestar i prosperitat necessaris per fixar i atreure població i talent al conjunt del territori. I per això, la implicació del món local, de les empreses i de la ciutadania és clau. L'agenda compartida permet fer efectiva aquesta implicació i avançar plegats en el desenvolupament d'innovacions transformadores que facin realitat la visió de futur. Avui és demà, perquè a Lleida fa temps que van comprendre que per construir un futur ple d'oportunitats necessitem un territori que impulsi la innovació i que sigui referent. Lleida, territori de futur. Terra d'oportunitats.
Iniciem ara el següent bloc d'aquest.
We'll now turn to the next panel. We'll swiftly, because we're running out of time, give the floor to bodies and institutions collaborating with the Lleida Shared Agenda. So it's my pleasure to invite up Clara Soler from the Technical Cabinet of the Department of Climate Action, Food and Rural Agenda, Anna Payí, Head of the Technical Surveillance Office of IRTA, IRTA, and Albert Puigvert, Manager of the ARCA, Association of Rural Initiatives of Catalonia.
Benvinguts.
Welcome. As we've heard, the Shared Agenda methodology generally promotes work across various dimensions that promotes alternative practices, and that means working with agents from these various spheres. We'd like to hear from you as representatives of some of these spheres, what opportunities you saw based on the Shared Agenda. Clara, in terms of policy, the Department of Climate Action, Food and Rural Agenda is responsible inter alia for implementing the Catalan bioeconomy strategy for 2030. This strategy defines the bioeconomic as a social, circular, sustainable model based on use of renewable, sustainable resources, which we have a lot of them, across various economic sectors. So as we know, this has a multi-sectoral impact. Bearing this in mind, could you take stock of the work done with the Lleida Shared Agenda? Well, thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you to Joan, the head of our technical cabinet. Without him, this collaboration would have been impossible. Now, turning to your question, shining a light on multi-sectoral challenges affecting various stakeholders and spheres, calling for systemic approaches, really calls for the following: collaboration between bodies, the government, various departments, various units, and the shared agendas promote such collaboration. Now, as we heard earlier, the shared agendas also promote ties between the government's plans and programs and innovative initiatives, which are helping us to achieve these strategies' aims, like the Catalonian bioeconomy strategy. For example, the Biohub CAT. We'll hear about this in a minute. Well, that's an initiative that came about from the Lleida Shared Agenda, and it's been key for implementing our Catalan 2030 bioeconomy strategy. So it's a type of collaboration between the agenda and the government, and together they've built this brick by brick. Thank you, Clara. Anna, the IRTA is a Catalan research institute. It's one of the branches of the government, and so it represents science and technology. The R&D actors often focus on concrete proposals or requests from businesses. What do you think could be the impact based on these shared agendas? Well, first and foremost, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to participate and share the work that we're doing. One key contribution is more effectively addressing challenges, understanding the local aspect of these challenges. As you said, research and technological centers, universities, well, we often have to participate in calls for tender for projects, and they all have their own structures and forms, and it can mean sometimes that it doesn't really have a big impact for our regions. And I think that these shared agendas can help us to ensure that knowledge doesn't come at the end of the project. Rather, jointly, we build such knowledge. We do this in various ways, mobilizing European resources at the territorial level, and one key component, better understanding what the problems we want to address are. One major challenge, scientifically speaking, is actually coming up with the right questions. And that's really important. We need to understand the problems, and the shared agendas help us to do so. We pool our knowledge, scientific knowledge, technological innovation, and what you said before, really understanding the grassroots. That helps us to be more effective and to ensure that we can roll out our efforts effectively. Thank you. Albert. ARCA is the regional network for rural development in Catalonia. You've helped to draft the rural agenda for Catalonia, which identifies the needs and challenges of rural territories to identify development and livelihoods. Bearing this in mind, and as people who are very aware of the situation on the ground in rural areas, well, what would you say about these shared agendas? They're essential. For us, we have a more global, more macro approach through our rural agenda, but we also have local reflections. We're working at the micro level in our territories. Well, reflection can help us to build multi-level processes that, instead of being generalizations, instead of focusing on very specific needs, well, we can not lose sight of the global. The shared agendas help us to develop processes to align stakeholders at various levels of the government and to ensure we build synergies and work towards the same aims. In rural areas with low population, it's very important for us to work systemically, interdisciplinarily, and multi-sectorially when looking towards the future. And in regions with limited human capital, where we don't really have the critical mass, it helps to have joint tools to support our work, to tackle our challenges. And I think here, but all across Europe, it's very important to have new hands on deck to work on our farms. So innovative approaches, new approaches, as we've been rolling them out, will help us to build territorial networks where we can pool our knowledge for farmers. Another key element is shared food production. Often, it's a question of scale and legal requirements, financial requirements. Well, sometimes sharing these spaces creates opportunities for our farmers, and that's something we're working on. So shared agendas allow us to work together towards the same aims. Thank you very much for sharing with us this approach so we can understand the various spheres and how you're working together to achieve the same transformative aims. Thank you.
Passem ara a la darrera.
And finally, we'll move to our last panel, which is about outcomes. Outcomes stemming from the shared agenda. Biohub CAT, as we heard before, is bottom-up. But also there are some top-down efforts there. It's a local and territorial initiative, and it's become really a regional sectoral initiative. We're joined by Victor Falguera, Biohub CAT advisor, Jordi Jové, president of Alcarràs Bioproductors, and Ot Fortun, industrial director of Circular Foods. Victor, what's the Biohub? Many people are curious about this. Short question, and well, we're a bit short on time, so I'll try to keep it short. The Biohub CAT is a one-stop shop to facilitate provision of all services which allow us to ensure a bioeconomy-based economic transformation. To put it clearly, every business, every entrepreneur, every self-employed person, every student with some type of bioeconomy-based initiative who needs services to push this idea forward will find them at our one-stop shop. Many of you here today are very familiar with the idea of hubs. The European Commission, well, back in 2016 was talking about hubs. Hubs aren't physical spaces. It doesn't really matter where services are provided, whether they're public, private, small, or big companies providing them. What's important is that the hub ensures people are aware of what's out there. It helps projects to move forward with the necessary services and tools. And you can see that there are 13 different types of work that we do. We're very realistic. We're working in all 13 of these areas, but don't be overwhelmed. You can see, you saw some figures here. They're laid out in terms of different types of services, and we're very aware that our initial work, mapping out what we need, identifies what we need to do to provide these services. So, how do we connect the dots? Well, the Biohub CAT is based on the Lleida Shared Agenda. If you look at the map of Catalonia, you've been here for 2 days. I'm sure you've taken a look at the map of Catalonia. Well, you'll know that the Biohub CAT aims to provide services to all of Catalonia. And that's thanks to the shared agenda. We heard about the PNI, the National Industry Pact. The PNI, the shared agenda, our work, it all goes hand in hand. There's also the Catalonia Food Strategic Plan and the S3 work. So 4 different projects working in lockstep. And thanks to the shared agenda, we've managed to identify the needs of Lleida, the Pyrenees, and Aran, the Aran Valley, with the overarching needs of Catalonia. So thank you for picking us as a benchmark here to highlight the work of the shared agenda. Thank you, Victor. Jordi, you represent the Alcarràs ranchers. In 2018, as we heard before, you identified bioeconomy as an opportunity to address some of your challenges. Furthermore, you've also actively worked to roll out the Biohub CAT and the various spheres in which it works. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and your ties to Biohub CAT? Good afternoon, everyone. congratulations on hosting this excellent event, and thank you for the opportunity to come here and tell you a little bit about our project. Well, we're 150 ranching families from Alcarràs. We came together to address the challenge we all face. As we heard before, excrementa. And we really took the bull by the horns and tried to address our challenge. We came together, we put together this association, as I said, 150 families. We purchased a piece of land where we could treat this waste. At the time, we had the idea of working on composting. That's really what tied us all together, and we decided to push that forward. And now it's the ranchers, the farmers that are actually managing this. We started with 27,000 tons, and we're now up to 54,000 tons just with the manure from our ranchers. So, problems give rise to opportunities. This composting plant focused on manure, but now we're building a biofuel plant. So we've got slurry, manure, other agro-industries, sub-products from the region. And now we're creating green fertilizer and soon renewable energy. So I'd like to seize the opportunity to tell you that we're really pleased to be able to do this type of work. This was just a very quick summary. We had a big piece of land, 18 hectares, and so we decided to work on this entire piece of land. We had the raw materials, we had the land, we put together a special plan, special type of permit you need in Catalonia, and now we're very lucky because we've got the raw materials, we've got the hierarchy, we've got a good type of organizational structure, and we've got the space. So we managed to address the problem we had before, and we opened up a whole range of opportunities. And what we're seeing now is that we can build on the work we've done in the past. And we're very pleased because, as I said before, it opens up innumerable opportunities moving forward. So we've heard about the Biohub and these bio-industrial estates, and that's based on your experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing there? Obviously, you work with logistics and biomass. Are there other companies interested in working in these industrial estates?
I wouldn't say that they're interested. They're extremely interested. Because if you have the raw matter in one place, you can have your facilities, a hierarchy, and I have to say that no one opposes that. I mean, neighbors, town halls, the Catalan government, everyone's on board with this economic model. So no one opposes it. We feel very proud. This is a bottom-up model. The citizens encourage us to move forward. So I invite you all to come and see it for yourselves. Thank you, Jordi. Circular Foods, Ott, can you tell us a little bit about what this is and how it has been linked to the Biohub? First, I have to say good evening. I'm the last one to speak. Don't worry. You'll be done in a minute. And I would like to thank the organizers and Teresa specifically for this opportunity. Circular Foods is a spin-off of the Biohub company that was set up in 2019. The Biohub group is a leading agri-food group in Europe. 150 million in terms of poultry. We integrate the whole agri-food chain from one end to an end, and there are 50 companies and about 15,000 collaborators. So Circular Food in 2018-19, we saw a trend in the globe about alternative protein, and there was a group of executives from the group that traveled all across the globe. They spoke about cellular meat, but after visiting Israel, the Netherlands, and San Francisco, they realized that there were two main action fields, which was plant protein, pulse food mostly, and fungus that was fermented, this kind of microprotein, and other research lines that were still in a fledgling state, which is this cellular protein, insects, fermentation, or microalgae. So when circular food was set up, our goal was to attach value to the whole food chain, to integrate the DNA from the whole production, which is why we founded three companies. First, Circular Brands. As its name says, it's about marketing products that have been produced by ourselves or by third parties. Just to give you an example, there are 100 distributors of our work in Spain, and Beyond Meat or other brands such as Next, BioLife, and Ping Albatros. So the production plant was opened in 2021. That's when we began producing. There's a wide range of possibilities of alternative proteins in a completely sustainable plant with different certificates. Well, I don't need to mention them. And the circular protein labs, which is where we design, implement, and scale our different products. What's the link with the Biohub? Teresa and Victor spoke to us. We felt very proud because we're also from Lleida, so there's this human dimension, and it's also quite important. And then as part of this process to set up this business, part of the team were lucky enough to travel across the globe. In July, we were in Tel Aviv. We went to the Wageningen University in the Netherlands. We went to San Francisco. And we had an opportunity to talk to different machinery suppliers. And in the field of alternative protein, they're quite relevant. We went to Switzerland, Denmark, the US, and we realized that Lleida, Catalonia, Spain, could also have these leading hub. An extruder, and this could be an example, it's a machine. You need to invest between 1.5 and 2 million euros to get one. You need to install it, and you get 16,000 kilos of product a day, which is great, but then you need to roll out this product. You need to have an opportunity to market it. If you have a center in Lleida, easily accessed, that can produce at an industrial or semi-industrial level before the investment, and to have a place in the market, that's extremely relevant. What other things have we noticed? Fermentation. Well, fermentation is something that we believe will increase in significance in upcoming years because you're using products and byproducts of the industry. For instance, Borges uses sunflower oil, Mau San Miguel beer, and we also use wheat byproducts. So why don't we try to foster these solutions? We believe that the Biohub is an example of these public-private partnerships. Companies from Lleida, Argao, San Miguel, Circular, other bodies such as research technological centers, IRTA, Eurocat, and the Catalan government and our city halls. This is a great example that we should remember, and we need to feel proud of this achievement. This has been mentioned before as part of the slides. We wanted to become a leading hub in alternative protein in Spain, in Catalonia. I have to say that we are referential for all of Europe. I mean, we are the main exporters of this product. And I believe it's a way to render our territory more visible. Finally, we are part of a project called From the Farm to the Table, to the Fork. So integrating leguminous plants so that we can sell this product as alternative protein. It's a project made up by the University of Lleida, Valle Seeds, Circular, Metalchemia, and an important stakeholder that has recently made an important purchase in the port of Barcelona, Avian, that has bought the meat texturization plant. we're talking about the protein that is used for animal feed, but there's a project underway which will be carried out by 2027. We will produce that protein in the Ebro Delta, and we'll make the most of these species. Finally, we've been speaking about shared agenda, so this is a shared journey for us all.
És evident que
Well, we started off speaking about the legal aspects and finally how to industrialize this added value in a rural region, which is, at the end of the day, the message we wanted to convey. This is what the shared agenda is all about. Industrializing this added value, which is compatible with farming and cattle raising. We're seeing here producers of alternative protein, so both things can go together. We are approaching the last section of this conference, but given that the three of you are here on stage, if you could please stay here for a couple of minutes. We have seen different stakeholders speak about this ambitious, complex initiative. However, the way forward in order to make these real changes possible is based on these kind of partnerships, and not only among institutions, but also between institutions and companies. Now, very briefly, in just a few words, what are the most salient elements of this agenda, and what are its most significant risks? What is it that we should avoid in order to have this agenda for the long run? I'll start. I'll do my best, however, to focus my answer on the Biohub, which is what I was here to talk about. Even though I've been lucky enough to work with the ranchers from Alcarràs, they told us we've invested a lot in finding solutions, and they haven't been successful from a technological point of view, or the Catalan government did not fully utilize them. So those were the initial meetings. We decided to work on solutions together. You have seen this today, regardless of the legal powers, of the level of government with the right powers. All representatives are sitting at the same table. And as Fernando Miranda said, the key here is to earn everybody's trust. This is what I'll remember from today. We have heard people talk about small-scale ranchers as opposed to the big industries in Europe. And we're talking about an association of 150 families, the so-called small-scale agents, but they bought a property. They developed the area, which is quite a complex process in Catalonia. They did so. They paid for it. They not only promoted it, and then they talked to the big companies and said, we have the potential to use this area to innovate at an industrial level. And this kind of applied innovation, are you interested? Can you work with us? So all these different stakeholders earn enough trust to promote their own initiatives and to share them when they are successful. And Miquel said this earlier. Ranchers, farmers are, well, the people interested in maintaining their own territory. And sometimes we get this idea that big companies are only there to extract and not to promote a region. And I think the opposite is true. So we want to work on economic transformation, but this is done by economic stakeholders. So companies, big and small, freelancers, industrialists, it's everybody's responsibility to set out the right conditions for those big industries to implement that transformation. So earning trust, that's fundamental. And secondly, we believe that this kind of transformation is always conducted by companies, but companies in turn are made up of people. So training, attracting the right human capital, and in the case of this Biohub, the technological Biohub, as Odd was just telling us. Just one last example to illustrate what I'm saying. The human capital that is lacking in order to operate such a plant will not be found in universities or technological centers, because that's not their role. They have a different kind of role and they're good at it. We don't have to wear a white coat here. We want blue-collar workers. The company that this gentleman represents said, as long as we have the right people that are trained, we have the staff locally who know how to run these facilities, and we can offer them as long as we have this open access environment. So it's all about trust, isn't it? What's the main risk, you were asking? Well, when you lose that trust, confidence is something that is very hard to get. We started speaking with farmers in 2017, so we are just now seeing the first results in terms of specific investments and policies and bottom-up initiatives. But it's been difficult to get this far. So any change, and we've overcome several such changes, different politicians, changes in government. I think that we have learned that we need to protect that shared agenda in the face of those potential changes. We need to keep working and see the right results of that economic transformation. Thank you. Jordi, the floor is yours. Now, what's the take-home message? Where is it that we were in the past and how we've moved from a problem to an opportunity, from a byproduct that we had locally that you had to pay for just to dispose of it? Now we are seeing new value in that waste of that resource. So we have a lot of opportunities, biofertilizers, renewable energy, liquefied gas, biogas. They're all resources, and they have helped us become more visible. We have planted this a green flag in Alcarràs. We are attracting talent, new companies, synergies, innovation, and we continue to develop. And I believe that the young, the fellow citizens, and I consider myself young, can feel very proud of this achievement. 150 families have come together, and even though in the past the big international companies did what they pleased with us, now they sit down with small and middle-sized companies, and we tell them, gentlemen, you can come to our region, but these are the rules. And that's the foundation for such a collaboration. I mentioned this before. I think that this bioregion, is fed by the power that has been created by the biogas plant. The farmers, the ranchers themselves, they're using these resources that in the past had no value, whereas right now they are helping meet these needs. So that's how I would encapsulate it. We have moved forward a couple of steps. We can sit down together, and together we will go further, I believe, than any of us would individually. We can help each other and complement one another. That's the main goal here. And what the Biohub should do is to offer the right knowledge. Sometimes those people who can help us are around the corner and we don't know them. So what the Biohub is doing is to help us identify ourselves, to introduce one another, and that's extremely important because up until now we had been on our own. Thanks, Jordi. We could write the script for a second movie about Alcarràs with a different kind of ending, probably. Odd. Okay. I believe that lots of things have been pointed out, so I'll do my best to summarize. Picking up on what Victor and Mr. Ardeñas said, don't remember his name, they talked about attracting and retaining talent. That will be a challenge for the industry, and specifically for territories not as populated as ours. And as Jordi said, if we don't have a lot of talent, we need to attract more talent and to retain that talent. And now wearing a different hat, as Victor said, I believe that the kind of messages we want to convey need to be more neutral and not, do any fear-mongering. Let me say why. Valls Companys is a family-owned business, 3 siblings from Lleida who fight for sustainability. They have 2,200 families from the pig raising industry. There are 200 farms in areas that are depressed, and they help them work together and feel reassured. So the message is, and that's what I would like to say, today in different areas, politics, the media, communication is all based on extremes. I think that we can all offer a more neutral communication that is more scientific, more reasonable, not based on this fear-mongering. And this has to be part of society, and it should help us move forward. I'm saying this because alternative protein, as you can imagine, as part of our meat producing group, is quite a paradigm shift, which involves some time for adjustment, but it's a complement for us. We have meat-based and alternative plant-based microprotein, but all within the same environment. And it has to be a choice offered to consumers. Thank you. I don't see any organizers around. I don't have a watch. What time is it? There you go. Oh, okay. So it's about time. Sorry. There's quite a delay. We won't have time for questions, but we will stay here in the room. If you have questions, you can come to us, or you can contact us through the Catalan government, the provincial government. We hope that this agenda has been an inspiration for you, and that we can replicate this model in other European regions that will allow us to industrialize the added value in rural areas to make this ecological transition possible. Thank you all so very much for your cooperation throughout today's session.